Sampayetia. Obayan Sapusu Bunia one kana sam. They mafu to some kakre was.
Welcome to another episode of our on-air series on the Heritage Month, and we are, as you know, this season discussing the Ghana people, the Ghana identity, Ghana culture, and of course the Ghana language. My name is Bernard Avile, and we are very happy to have a man of many parts to help us plow through this very exciting conversation about who a Ghana is, how they've evolved, and the issue of the Ghana identity. And we're going to use the root of language. My guest is Reverend Proffesor Phillip. He is a minister of the Presbyterian Church of Ghana, an associate professor of African theology at the Akrofi-Christaller Institute of Theology. And he has written a number of books, some of which include the Ammah series, which I call them the Ammah series that he did. And of course, he's done stuff on the reinterpretation of history and religion of the Ghana from the standpoint of Jesus as Lord. Reverend Prof, great to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Bernard.
I always wonder what you are. Are you a priest? Are you a historian? Are you an ethnographer? Are you an anthropologist? How do you describe you? Because you seem to be doing all kinds of things.
I think I go where the catch is.
Okay.
There are so many things that fascinate me. So I move wherever the light is. And so it looks as if I have so many parts. And I really enjoy doing all that.
But you do priestly work as well, and you teach in the university?
Yes, I do.
Supervise research?
Yes, I do.
And then pursue your own historical interest?
Yes, pursue my interests.
So are you a Ghana yourself?
Yes, I'm Ghana.
I see. Where are you from?
From Teshi.
Oh, I see.
But my roots actually go to Noyaa. So we actually come from Noyaa, but we migrated to Teshi and showed the Teshi people where their land actually where
I hear that a lot, where Ghanaians will say to me, we are, and somehow I get the sense that Noyaa has a very interesting place in the Ghana.
Very aboriginal.
Yes, I get that. So somebody said to me that a lot of things we hear in Accra, the original place is Noyaa. Is that correct?
Very original. Noyaa and Gamashi.
Gamashi.
The first settlers, if you like.
I see. So again, your location in Accra has had its own interesting sort of implications. One of the things we always ask our guests is this idea that Ghanaians are very welcoming and that Ghanaians are very open and that they sort of bring other people in. They have an expression, they call it Ablekuma, abakuma. Is this something that you can relate to? Is this something that's true in your experience?
Oh yes, it's part of Ghana philosophy, Ablekuma, abakuma. I think that it owes to the position that the Ghana people occupied by virtue of our history, pre-colonial history. Ghana people played the middleman role. You know, in times of trade with the Europeans, several people came from the hinterland to trade, and the Ghana people were the middlemen, middlewomen, if you would like. And so several people came, you know, to pitch their camps here. You couldn't avoid it. I think that the problem even became worse when the capital was moved from Cape Coast to Accra in 1877. So over the years, we've had to welcome strangers, to come and then dwell with us. So that has been the history. So Ghana people have been welcomed.
And as against other groups who, even though they may welcome strangers, you sort of have no problem assimilating them into your system. So, for example, if you go to a place like Otublohum, I'm told there are people there who are originally Akwamu or from other places, and they become part. It's not like, yes, you are a foreigner, so stay in these quarters. You have no problem with assimilating strangers.
No, I mean, I don't think that we had any problem assimilating strangers. Strangers, even Europeans, European merchants. So if you go to a place like Osu, maybe Cape Coast, like Osu, you'll find a number of names that have European origins. Danish, German, you find all of them there. So it's not only Gold Coasters, as we say, but even Europeans. So it's quite all-embracing, and that's been the philosophy of the Ghana people for many years.
In retrospect, has that been beneficial or detrimental to the advancement of the Ghana people?
Well, it's a mixed fortune. We've gained a lot by reason of opening up to other people, but you know, there've also been disadvantages, and which has affected Ghana identity in terms of language, culture, customs, and traditions. And particularly in this time and age, there are people who are really feeling it. So there are a number of Ghana people who are complaining that it looks as if we have been overwhelmed. You stay in your own land and you hardly hear your own language being spoken. I remember my little boy, when he was at the university primary, I normally would pick him back home. There's a place where we go, a filling station. So I take him there and buy things for him. One day we were there, I was looking at something, he was also going around, just barely 5 or 6. Then he came, you know, and whispered into my ears, Daddy, I'm a vegan.
Oh.
You know, it struck me.
Wow.
And here at Hacho,
Wow.
you know, I mean, you hear this when you travel outside the country.
Which means he hardly hears
Oh, yes.
the language,
little boy,
even though he's in Accra.
Even though he's in Accra, probably he hears the language at home. And it's really struck me.
That's tragic, though. And some people think it's because the capital also was brought here, so it sort of cosmopolitanized the place quickly.
Precisely, that's the point I was making. You know, it added to we gained, but then we lost. And I think that we're trying to regain, fighting, you know, to assert who we really are.
So who is a Ga?
Well, you could say both by language and also a person's place of origin. You know, you're born into a Ga family. Got several Ga, you know, towns. And so if you are born into a Ga family, we inherit patrilineally. So if your father happens to be a Ga person, then you are defined as a Ganyobi.
Irrespective of where you are born.
Irrespective of
once your father is Ga, you are Ga.
Yes, once your father is Ga, you inherit patrilineally, and you are given a Ga name. That gives you an identity that you are a Ga person. I mean, simply defined, you identified by first and foremost by your name, because your name then, you know, we are able to determine where you come from.
Just by your name?
Yes, just by your name. And I'm doing some work on Ga names. Well, we have these first, second generation names, both for male and female. Agbe, Kpee, you know. So all the names are there. So once you're born, you know, any family, you know, knows the name you should take, and you can trace somebody to the place they come from. Whether they come from Gamashi, from Teshi, from Noyaa. Noyaa have peculiar names. Gamashi have certain names that are peculiar.
Just by the name?
Just by the name.
This is interesting. I remember Proffesor said to me some time ago that a Ga's name is an address. So if you mention your name, we know everything we need to know about you. You agree?
Yes, we can send you straight home. Of course, some of the names overlap. And so you find Aji, maybe Teshi, and then La. But if you go deeper, they will take you to the clan house.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Just by hearing the name?
Yeah, they will take you to the clan house.
I could do a test on this.
It's fascinating.
So if I say Ni Ayite Tego, what are the possible places Ni Ayite Tego would be from, and what will be his position in a family?
Ayite would be the first-born male, you know. Tego is the surname or the family name. I mean, the Tegos we know, come from Gamashi, from Accra. Yes, and so they can take you straight to the family house. You know, once you mention your name. Yeah.
You are right, because one of my best friends is called Leonard Ni Ayite Tego, and he's from exactly what you said, and he's the first male born.
Yes. So once you mention the name, if it's a female, Ayele, you know.
Na Ayele.
Na Ayele. Yeah, Na Ayoko.
And the surname. So if you were a Sowa, or he were Lampte, you could still tell where he's from.
Yes.
So if it's a Ni Lante Lamte or Ni Lante Lamte.
Some of the surnames have been corrupted. Actually, we used to have, you take your father's name, so properly speaking, that's a surname. My father's name is Okle. So I should have been called Tete Okle. And then my junior brother is Mensah. So the firstborn, and that's how we distinguish between the names. Because I will give the same names to my children as my younger brother would do.
So then your name hyphen your son's name then distinguishes you from his cousin.
That's the thing.
Okay.
So they know, who gave birth to who. Over the years, then we had this family, more of the European family name. So I took on Lai. Lai happens to be my great-grandfather's name. And it came through the influence of my grand-uncle, who was a minister of the Presby Church. And so we got stuck to that name, Lai. But strictly speaking, I should be taking my father's name, which is Okle. And then, because sometimes it can be confusing. My first daughter is Afoli. My junior brother also has Afoli. In fact, we are boys. 5 of us are boys, the first 5 of us. So have our firstborns, if they are female, they all have the same name.
And the name is predetermined?
Yes, it's predetermined, it's Afoli. So the only way you can distinguish is Tete Biafoli, because I'm Tete. Mensah Biafoli, Anang Biafoli. That's how you distinguish it. Otherwise, it can be confusing.
Where Mensah obviously is the third one.
He's the third one.
Anan is the fourth.
Anan is the fourth one, and boy is it.
Wow. Let's try another one. I'm loving this. So we have Nathan Ni Obodai Kwao.
Yes.
What will Nathan's younger brother, who comes after him, be? If it's so Nathan Obodai. So what's Obodai's brother?
Well, I know Wodze they would probably come from Osu and then La. So you have Soja. Aja. You have Togbo. Yeah. So they have those names.
Yeah, right. Nathan's brother, one of his brothers is Aja, and I think his other brother is Togbo. So I think you have passed the test. So you're saying a name is a very important descriptor of a Ga.
It's the address, like Professor Udote said.
And then, of course, where your father is from. But what about language? Can we say that for a person to be Ga, they must also speak Ga language?
Yes. I mean, once you mention your name, then everybody would expect that you would speak the language. Because once they know you're a Ghana person, and so they will expect you to be able to speak the language. So the language is also another form of their identity. Yeah. And there are people, sadly to say, I mean, they've lost their mother tongues. They're not able to express themselves. And it's really sad. Because there are people who would want to speak, but they are unable to speak. And it's one of the crises, identity crises that Ghana people are having to go through. Because the Ghana language goes back several years back. It's one of the first to be reduced into writing. And maybe that's why it fascinates me, because I'm not a linguist. I'm not a philologist, but I've been following the developmental track, if you like, the historical tracks of the language. And so that is what has drawn me to it, to be able to research, because there are a lot of documents, that one could lay hands on. And so it's quite fascinating.